Well, welcome to what I am now officially calling episode 1 of the Dean Ciriaco Show. I had uh, made an episode that went on the main YouTube channel, which was covering center fielders, top 10 center fielders. And initially, I was saying that was episode 1 of the Dean Ciriaco Show, which I don't know if I'm going to keep that name, but for the moment, I will. Now, what I decided to do after kind of like thinking about it for a few days is just to make a separate YouTube channel for these videos, which will be something like this, going over my top 10s, talking about whatever uh, baseball stories I want to talk about, interviewing authors, doing like baseball history videos, or just doing like videos like my top 10 plays in the I think I did 2010s, which I'm going to re-upload on this channel because I'd uploaded initially on the main channel. The main channel will just be for kind of whatever we want to post there. I was deciding between posting at kind of making that the channel where I post all my stuff, but I'd rather start from starting from zero. I think I already have 5 subscribers here, but kind of starting from zero with this, and I just think it's better for a big worry of mine has always been like having the skipper's view only be my voice, and I don't want that to be the case because I think it has to be kind of like almost a neutral voice in many ways, which is why like on the main page I try to just retweet and quote tweet like all the blogs that we're doing, so it's not just like my thoughts and my takes. Some of the motivation for this was I was at Starbucks. I was walking through Starbucks. There's a couple people on the computer, and all of a sudden, like I see what I thought was our website, and it turns out it was our website, and it was someone reading one of our blogs. I couldn't really see exactly which one it was, but then I saw them click back onto the main page, and very distinctly I saw like my face, which was a weird moment. So I immediately ran away. But yeah, so I want these videos. I'm going to do mostly voiceovers. I think going forward when I'm doing like a video about a top 10 player, a specific player, or a team or something like that. But with these, when I'm like kind of like showing my screen and saying going over like the top 10 catches of all time, which I'm going to do right now real quick, then I'll kind of just share my screen, show my face and whatnot. Also, because I don't feel like dealing with like copyright issues. But yeah, that was weird. And I was like, oh, okay, people. And again, if you look at the website itself, we are very much a blog. Obviously, everyone on the team does great numbers on Twitter or YouTube. We've never really been a YouTube channel, but if you look at like we've had the biggest month ever, and it's still like 12 or so days to go in January. So we're gonna kind of crush our previous number, and I'll kind of show that real quick because I think some people are interested by that. But if you look here and you look at the chart, it's just been kind of like consistent, constant growth, and now January is the biggest month we've had on the website. And look, getting clicks on Twitter, impressions on Twitter, is not easy, but it's not totally difficult. You can post something that just goes trending and all of a sudden it's viral. Getting people to go onto your click off of Twitter, click off other things and go onto your website is much more difficult. And we've just been kind of pumping out so much good content that, except for this photo, I don't know why it's blurry, that I wanted to make sure. I want to make sure again that the website, the YouTube channel, and the Twitter is not just like my voice. So now I'm making kind of like a separate thing for that. So with that, like I'll just kind of like go into what this video is about, which is my top 10 catches of all time. I'm kind of jumping around and like where I'm posting these. Like this was written 10 days ago, and now I'm posting it. I'm posting it now, but I'll just run through it real quick. So number 10, I have Thurman Munson, who's the Yankees catcher. Captain unfortunately passed away at a young age due to a plane accident. Now he was later in his career, there was a good chance he was going to retire or request a trade closer to home because he was from the Midwest. He was not from New York. But if you look at where he ranks, he's ranks 15th in WAR, 8th in WAR 7, 9th in JAWS amongst catchers. So putting him in the top 10 of catchers I don't think is a stretch by all at all. He's an MVP, three-time Gold Glove winner, two-time World Series champion, seven-time All-Star, and he again led the team as captain. He's not a Hall of Famer. I think he should be a Hall of Famer. The reason he's not the Hall of Famer is if you look at just his counting stats. So 292 average, 113 home runs, 701 RBIs, 756 OPS, and a little over 1,500 hits. So like those numbers themselves are not going to get you into the Hall. But I think if you look at his peak, which again, look at WAR 7, and Jaws, he's top 10 catcher of all time. I think that should get him in. I think he will eventually get in, especially with kind of like the way the position of catcher has changed. But that remains to be seen. Number 9, if you read my blog, you would know that it's not actually Buster Posey. It's Mickey Cochran, and these are all Mickey Cochran stats. I was getting a lot of flack for having older players on these lists. But I have no problem with Buster Posey. He probably will get into the Hall of Fame. But Cochran is a two-time MVP, two-time All-Star, three-time World Series champion. And if you go look at here and you look at his stats, he, with the exception of home runs, and they're tied for OPS, he matches or beats Posey in every single category. He obviously doesn't have any Gold Gloves or Silver Sluggers, but he does have 2 MVPs. Again, that wasn't an award back then. And again, as great as Posey is, like let's look at Cochran and Posey's stats right now. Cochran 1,652 hits, Posey 1,500 hits, Cochran 119 home runs, Posey 158 home runs, 130 RBIs, bad 320. This is Cochran, bad 320, 897 OPS, 129 OPS plus. You go back up and you look at Munson, for example. The average isn't there as much for Munson compared to Cochran, but all the other numbers are there. And he's 3 WAR difference between Cochran. Again, different eras, so you got to take that into account. But still, I think you look at Posey and Cochran. Cochran's in the Hall of Fame. If you want Posey to be in the Hall of Fame, you have to also put Munson in the Hall of Fame. So that's kind of where I fall on that. Number 8 is Joe Mauer, and actually is Joe Mauer. 55.2 B WAR, 39.0 WAR 7, 47.1 Jaws. Never had below 1.5 B WAR. Obviously, retires young. I think Posey had great postseason numbers. Mauer never really had postseason success. If he did have postseason success, he would jump, I think, a lot of these guys. He's the only catcher in MLB history to win 3 batting titles. He has an MVP, where he probably had the best offensive season of a catcher in the last either ever, or then you look at like someone like Yogi Berra's 1950 season, which I'll get to, where he had like 28 home runs, 124 RBIs, and 12 strikeouts. So that's kind of crazy as well. I think Mauer at 8 is a fair spot, especially when you look at the rest of this list. Number 7 is Roy Campanella. This is one where you have to look past B WAR, WAR 7, and Jaws, because those don't necessarily stack up to everyone else. And you also kind of have to look past the counting stats too, with like 242 home runs, 856 RBIs, and 1,100 hits, because you have a 3-time MVP. You have a guy who came in later in his career because of integration. You have a 3-time MVP, 1951, 1953, and 1955. You're a World Series champion. The knock against him is he had these crazy good MVP seasons, followed like almost immediately by like very seasons where he was like almost like a replacement level player. But still, 3 MVPs. Unfortunately, kind of similar to Munson, Campanella didn't lose his life, but he had a car accident on Long Island and was paralyzed. He ended up getting feeling in the waist up, but he was paralyzed from the neck down initially, and that obviously ended his career. Again, he was in his 30s when this happened. He was coming off a productive season, but it wasn't a MVP season. And actually with him, the Negro League stats that they've implemented on Baseball Reference hurt some of his numbers, because they're taking years where he was like 15, 16, and 17 years old, and bringing that onto his stats. And I'll kind of like try to show that real quick, because I think it helps his counting stats a little, but then like average OPS and everything like that kind of takes a dip. And I was wondering, I was too lazy to do the math to kind of like exactly figure it out. But if I show you this, you see he was 15, 16, 17, and he was just producing negative WAR, batting 200 or less with an OPS below 450, OPS plus below 25 or below. Obviously, like not a lot of at bats, but still, like you add up those, and even when you look at his 18, when he puts up age of 18, where he puts up point 0.3 WAR, his numbers are well below what his career averages are. He has a couple of Negro League seasons here as well, like a 388 average and 159 OPS plus. That those bring up his numbers, I guess, or kind of like even out those early Negro League numbers. But I just think it's crazy. I had not seen a player that had uh, age 15, 16, 17 baseball reference numbers. So that was pretty cool. Campanella is number 7 for me. Number 6, Carlton Fisk. He 0.4 B WAR, 43.7 WAR 7, 56.1 Jaws, 11-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year, Gold Glove, 3-time Silver Slugger. His best season came when he was 24, so I think it was his first full year. He won Rookie of the Year, was 4th in MVP voting. He then had a 21-year career. I think if he's great, so it's like I'm not trying to like. It's weird. Like I was just watching the Yogi Berra documentary recently, so you just have to look at the catcher position in such a different light. I think if you look at his stats, if you take him and you put him like anywhere else kind of on the field, Carlton Fisk's career probably is a lot shorter. But because he was so productive in the catcher position, like offensively as a catcher, he's able to play kind of 21 careers. So he's 4th in WAR, 7th in WAR 7, and 4th in Jaws amongst catchers. So you could argue he's top 5. I'm not, because again, when you get to these top 5, you're going to see a lot of postseason success mixed with just like kind of dominant actual regular season stats. And the first one kind of with that is Mike Piazza. So Piazza's the best offensive catcher, I think, in a lot of people's minds, or power hitting catcher, whatever you want to say. 308 average, 427 home runs, 1,300 RBIs, 922 OPS with 2,100 hits. He transitions out of catcher kind of. He doesn't play catcher his entire career like Fisk does. He kind of bounces around a little. But 5th in WAR, 3rd in WAR 7, 5th in Jaws. So number 5 feels like the best spot, I think. For me, I think he's the best power hitting catcher of all time. I don't think he's the best offensive catcher necessarily. His defense was good. He's the worst on this list defensively as a catcher, but his defense was solid. Bad compared to these guys, I guess. His story is just interesting. It goes from like having like Ted Williams watch him play as like a 16-year-old to be drafted by Tommy Lasorda as a favor to his dad. Yeah, that's an interesting story. For 4 is Gary Carter, Hall of Famer, 7-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glove winner, 5-time Silver Slugger, and a World Series champion in 1986 with the Mets. Also over 300 home runs. Only bats 262. Only, again, if you look at a lot of these catchers' number, that's kind of right where they are. 773 OPS and 2,000 hits. That's actually very similar to not far off from Fisk, honestly. Carter brought a lot more postseason wise, and he's in a World Series championship, so I will put him over Fisk in that way. 2 Mets legends in a row. I wrote that. So you have Piazza and Carter back. Carter obviously played for the Expos as well for a good portion of his career. Yeah, I actually want my dad to come and talk more about Gary Carter. I'm going to keep Gary Carter for now. Pudge Rodriguez, a little biased because he's a player that like him and Piazza are players that I actually got to see. He had really good MLB Showdown cards as well. But Pudge, 300 average, 300 home runs, 1,300 RBIs, close to an 800 OPS, and actually close to 3,000 hits. 68.7 B WAR, 46.7 WAR 7, and 57.7 Jaws. He's probably the best. He's the best defensive catcher of all time if you look at like Gold Gloves and everything. So he had 13 Gold Gloves, pairing it with almost 300 hits, 300 home runs, and 3,000 hits. Puts him at number 3. He's only got 1 World Series. There are very like not even loose like accusations for Piazza and Pudge of like PED use. For Piazza, it was like someone saw he had acne on his back, and then for Pudge, It's like Jose Canseco saying it. So if you want to take Jose Canseco's word and also Mike Pietz's back knee as reasons that they took PEDs, go ahead. I'm not going to. He's in the Hall of Fame. I think they've been very strict about letting those guys into the Hall of Fame. So I think if they thought that he was an actual PED user, they wouldn't have put him in. Now this where it just gets a little controversial because I have Johnny Bench at number 2, and I recently watched the Yogi Berra documentary on Netflix, which I think everyone should go watch. It's a great documentary, and kind of like the beginning of the documentary, one of the like main, I don't want to say storylines because it's a documentary, is in 2015 where they had the All-Star game and they brought out the 4 greatest living players of all time. And it was Bench, Aaron, Koufax, and Mays. Yogi Berra was still alive at that time, so it's like his granddaughter watching it with Yogi Berra, being like, "Are you dead?" And he's like, "Nope." And then kind of just showing for really the entire extent of the documentary why it was, and they keep referencing it. That's why I was like, it's funny because it seems like that was the motivation. They keep referencing the 2015 All-Star game where they bring out the 4 greatest living players. And if you watch that documentary, again, it's meant to convince you that Berra is the greatest catcher of all time. I already thought that prior, and I met Yogi Berra, so like also a little biased there. I actually got to like shake his hand, and he signed a baseball for me. So I've never met Johnny Bench, but if you just look at combination of postseason success, regular season success, and yeah, I also take into account the fact that like Yogi Berra stormed the beaches of Normandy while Johnny Bench was like a kid in his backyard learning how to be a better defensive catcher, I guess, than Berra. But again, looking at Bench's stats, 267 average, 389 home runs, 1,300 RBIs, 817 OPS, 2,000 hits. 2-time MVP, 14-time All-Star, 10-time Gold Glove winner, 2-time World Series champion. With every position that I've talked about or written about, like it was very clear who was the best player of all time. You had like Mike Schmidt, and you had, actually I think I put Robinson too. You had Mike Schmidt, you had Lou Gehrig, and you look at Bench, he's first in WAR, second in WAR 7, first in JAWS. So if you're going off of those numbers, then you would put Bench 1. For me, the position of catcher has changed so much over the years, and Berra kind of almost like bridged those two eras in some way together between like the old catcher of the early 1900s and the catcher of the 1970s that people kind of credit that transformation to Johnny Bench. One, I think you go all the way back to like Mickey Cochran and kind of attribute that to him. But really, I think it should be attributed to is Yogi Berra, which right here I put cry about it because people were upset about this. 285 batting average, 358 home runs, 1,430 RBIs, 830 OPS, 2,100 hits, 59 WAR, 43 WAR 7, 51 JAWS, 3-time MVP, 18-time All-Star, 10-time World Series champion as a player. Is he the best defensive catcher of all time? No. But also, like, none of this takes into account, like, actually calling games as a catcher. So I just want to put that into account. But if you go down here and look at their stats, yes, Bench has more WAR. He's got 300 more plate appearances than Berra. Berra's got more hits. Bench has 30 more home runs. Berra's got more RBIs. He's got less stolen bases, better average, better on base, better slugging, better OPS, and he's one. So Bench is 125 OPS plus. Berra is 126 OPS plus for Bench, 125 OPS plus for Berra. Then you have 10 World Series, 18 All-Stars, and 3 MVPs. All of those outdo Bench. No World Series MVP for Berra. And obviously, you have the Gold Gloves with Bench. But again, when did Gold? I know the answer, but I just want to show it. Okay. So you have 1957. And now I want to show, my screen's not even sharing. 1957. Berra was 32 when the Gold Glove came out. If you go down to his defensive stats, okay, for earlier in his career, Okay. Again, was he let's go before 32. And let's go fielding percentage. Okay. I mean, you had a season where what was the lowest fielding percentage he was before the age of 32? 970. His worst fielding year. Sorry, it's even better than that. 22, when it was his um, second year playing. Then, if you want to put his outfield numbers in, you can, because Barrett started to play some outfield as well, especially later on in his career. But again, for a career, he's a 986 or 988, 988 fielder. So 125 errors. If I go back up to like D WAR, so career, he was a 9.2 or 9.3 D WAR for his career. Just out of curiosity, I just want to see what Johnny Bench was. Obviously, it's going to be higher than that. I know you can't just go off D WAR. Yeah, 19.7 D WAR for Bench. Regardless, for me, I put Berra at number one. His 1950 season, which he didn't even win the MVP. And I can bring this up again. 1950, okay, 6.1 BWAR, which is the second most of his career. Okay, 28 home runs, 124 RBIs, 55 walks, 12 strikeouts, and he played 151 games, 656 plate appearances. He batted 322, which is a career high, 915 OPS, which is a career high, and then 135 OPS plus, which is not a career high, but it's right there. He got third in MVP voting that year. I think Phil Rizzuto won. So Rizzuto won with 6.8 WAR, 7 home runs, 60. Why did he win MVP this year? I don't know. I guess he had a better on base percentage. Who led in WAR this season? This is always fun to look for. Yeah, Ned Garver led in WAR that year, 8.1. Pitcher though. But yeah, Berra didn't lead. Neither Berra or Rizzuto led in any category that year. Billy Goodman, who came in second, Red Sox player, batted 354. I don't know. I just think the 12 strikeouts. Again, back then people struck out a lot less, but still, the 12 strikeouts is crazy. But yeah, so I have Berra as number one. We'll talk about it more, but I'd also want to keep this under 25 minutes if I can. I will probably jump and do. I'm all over the place now in terms of like these videos, which ones I'm doing, in what order. But if I go to my blog here, I've done the top 10 center fielders. I could do the top 10 left fielders next. Shortstops was fun to do. First base was fun to do. Third base was kind of straightforward. Second base was fun to do. I'll probably just do left field so I can talk about Ted Williams. But I already talked about Ty Cobb. So, yep, Berra ends up being my number one catcher of all time. Thanks for listening to this or watching it, however you're taking this. I will kind of figure out more of a balance in terms of how I want to present this, because I do share my screen a lot and show stuff, but obviously it doesn't really work for the podcast. So I'll try to vocalize as much as on the screen as possible. And I will have more videos where it's like showing film instead of just sharing a screen. But for now, I'm just kind of figuring it out. And also, I just like these top 10 lists, and people seem to like them a lot. I have a lot of people messaging me their top 10s. So that's fun. They kind of just turn into like fun little debates where I don't think anyone is right or wrong. So, but that's it for me. Thank you. Bye.